Hey guys, so today we're going to work on our basics. I'm using a number 2 round brush and spritz my paint with 2 spritz of water, and I start working up the paint. It takes a while when you first start working with the paint because it's dry, and to get it to the right consistency it takes a while. So now I twist to a point to get a nice sharp point, and as you can see here, my paint is watery. You can see it's glistening in the light, and it's a bit too watery to work with. You don't want it dripping down the child's face or anyone's face that you paint. So continue to rub it in the paint, and now you can see it's a lot better. It's not dripping, it's just creamy enough to make a nice, crisp, clean line. Now, loading your brush is important. That first load should give you a lot of paint to make multiple lines and not just one line. So again, twist to a point when you finish loading and work with that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to teardrops. Twist to a point. Again, I do it every single time. Twist to a point. Now, holding my brush vertical, straight up, I'm going to push down and then lift up to a point at the end so you get a nice thin line at the end. Again, push the tip all the way down and drag and lift up. This will give you nice, big to thin, thick to thin teardrops. As you can see, I can make quite a few teardrops with just one load. Again, push all the way down, lift to a point, and now is a reverse teardrop, which is backwards. So thin line and then push down. Instead of push down to a point, you're going to go point, then you push down. So it's all up and down motion. Now we're going to work on our swirls. So I like to use my pinky to help me control my hand. We're going to start off at a point, our brush vertical. As we go around, we're going to push down, swirl, and then lift to a point to get that nice thin line in the middle. So now it's 3 different sizes. It's thin, thick to thin. With swirls and teardrops, you can make many designs just using swirls and teardrops. Also, starburst, you start in the center, make a dot, and just flick your brush up, flick it down, and side to side. Here's another technique, thin to thick lines. So at the tip, holding your brush vertical, drag it, then push down, and then lift up. So it's an up and down motion each time. I'm just showing you some tiger stripes there, but now we're going to go thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin. So again, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin. So it's push down, lift up, push down, or lift up, push down, lift up. Now here's some other designs, like I'm saying, the tiger stripes, cheetah designs. It's thin, push down, wiggle, 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 lift up. So thin, push down, wiggle, 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 lift up. And I'm using all of this with a number 2 brush, and you can get as thin as the points or as thick as the middle. See, the points are very thin here, and the middle is thick. That's when I lay my brush flat all the way down. So thin, push down, lift up. And just to get some paint off my brush, I just create teardrops. Now we're going to move on to sponges. Here's a teardrop sponge. We use that for many designs, and it's high density compared to this half sponge. The pores are bigger in that half sponge compared to the teardrop. And this is another half sponge with a high density, so it's the same as a teardrop, just a bigger size. So first we're going to show you and compare the high density compared to the very porous one, the big pores. So just spritz your sponge a little, rub it in the paint, and as you can see how big the holes are and how watery it can get, but it's not impossible to blend out. So when I flip my sponge over, I can use the back to blend it out, and it looks really nice and smooth and not watery. Now with the high density sponge, all you need to use is just one side of the sponge, because it has small holes where it creates a nice blend. Here's the technique we use for all our skulls, and if it has a big base that we need to paint over, I like to do the soft blending, where it's just spreading the paint all over the face, and you don't want thick wet paint in one area, because when it dries up, it starts to crack and feel a bit uncomfortable. So this way, when you're doing this soft blending technique, you're still covering the whole base, but it's light and airy, breathable for the kid, comfortable to wear, and you can cover a large area using that technique.